I moved to this small town a few weeks ago. I thought I found the perfect home. It was an old Victorian house with charm. I wanted a break from my busy city life. At first, everything was fine, though the creaky floorboards made me uneasy sometimes. On my second night, I heard scratching sounds from inside the walls. I tried to ignore it. I thought it was just the house settling. I kept the lights on and told myself it was nothing. But the scratching grew louder. It made it hard to focus on my work. I finally decided to find out what was happening. I crept around, listening closely. My heart raced, and I felt cold. What was making that noise? I told myself it was probably mice. I decided to check the attic one night. It was filled with dust-covered boxes and old furniture. As I rummaged through the stuff, I found old toys and letters. They seemed untouched for years. There were photographs of a family, the Durnhams. I looked at their faces and felt something was off. What had happened to them? The more I uncovered, the more uneasy I felt. The house had secrets, it seemed. I found an article about the Durnham family and their mysterious disappearances. People said they vanished, but no one knew why. Maybe the scratching was connected to them. Every night, the noises intensified. I couldn't ignore them anymore. I wanted to believe it was just my imagination, but deep down, I felt there was more to it. The whispers started around that time too. They echoed through the walls, growing louder, like something was trying to reach me. I lay awake at night, scared. I wanted to leave, but I didn't have anywhere else to go. I spent my days working in that attic, but it felt more like a prison. The walls felt like they were closing in on me. Then, that one night changed everything. I was lying in bed, wrapped in blankets, when I heard it again. A soft voice broke through my thoughts. Megan. My breath caught in my throat. No one was there, but I felt something staring at me. The scratching began again, more urgent. I knew I had to uncover what was hidden inside those walls. I crept downstairs, my heart racing. I found a loose panel in the living room wall. I pulled at it, and it gave way. I shoved it aside and peered inside. Darkness swallowed what lay beyond, but I knew I had to reach in. I felt something cold against my fingertips. I pulled out a small, worn box. My heart raced as I opened it. Inside lay a locket and a bundle of letters. The letters were old and yellowed. Each one was filled with words of sorrow. As I read, my stomach twisted. The last letter mentioned a secret. It hinted at what the Durnhams had hidden away. They knew something terrible was coming. I felt a cold breeze around me. Help us, it whispered behind me. I turned to see shadows shift on the wall. Panic filled me. The scratching resumed, and it sounded more desperate. Whatever the Durnhams hid was coming for me. Now, I was trapped in their story, and it felt like something was breaking through, right then, to take me with it. I stumbled back, nearly dropping the box. The shadows twisted and danced around me. My heart felt like it was going to burst. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to think. I couldn't let fear control me. Whatever was happening, I had to know what it was. That I stared at the letters again, trying to make sense of the chaos. They knew something terrible was coming. The words echoed in my mind. What did that mean? I needed to find out more. The scratching grew impatient. I couldn't allow it to distract me. There, among the letters, was a name. Amelia. She was someone special to the Durnhams. I flipped through the letters until I found one addressed to her. It spoke of love but was laced with dread. It's too late for us, it said. You must escape. That made my skin crawl. Why had they wanted her to escape? It hinted at danger closing in. I had to find out more about Amelia. I decided to head to the small library in town. I hoped there might be some records or information about her. The next day, the sun felt oddly muted as I walked there. The town had a strange stillness that made my skin prickle. It felt like the shadows were watching me. When I arrived, I pulled open the heavy door, and the smell of old paper and dust greeted me. I approached the librarian, an elderly woman who seemed to know everyone's business. "Excuse me," I began, my voice shaky. "I need information about the Durnham family. Especially Amelia." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "The Durnhams? They vanished without a trace. Such a sad affair." She didn't seem inclined to share more, so I pressed on. "I found some letters," I said, glancing around as if someone might overhear. "They mentioned Amelia. Do you know what happened to her?" The librarian's expression shifted. "Some say she was the last to know the truth. But you should be careful. Not many speak of them." A chill settled in the pit of my stomach. One must not disturb what was buried. I felt the weight of her words. What had they buried? Why did it matter now? I left the library with more questions than answers. The scratching in my walls felt alive, pulling me back to the old Victorian. I drove home quickly, my mind racing. I wanted to dismiss the urgency, to believe it was just my imagination. As I stepped inside, I heard it again, louder this time. "Megan." The cold voice sliced through the air, sending sharp chills down my spine. I froze. And then everything went still. I turned toward the sound and realized I was no longer alone. A shadow emerged from the corner of the room. My breath caught in my throat. "Who are you?" I whispered, fighting the urge to scream. The figure slowly advanced, and I recognized the faded outline of a woman. "Help us," it said again, and my heart sank. I needed to know. What did they hide in the walls for all those years? And why was Amelia still trying to reach me? I stood frozen, staring at the ghostly figure. My instincts screamed at me to run, but I couldn't tear my eyes away. I was taken by her sorrowful gaze, as if she held a million untold stories that reached out to me. "Amelia?" I managed to whisper, hoping I was wrong but needing to know. The spectre nodded ever so slightly, and my heart raced. This was the woman from the letters, the one who was warned to escape. But escape from what? "Help us," she repeated, her voice a haunting echo that seemed to wrap around me like a thick shroud. I had no idea how to help her, or what that even meant. Just then, a loud thud against the wall broke the spell. I jumped, spinning toward the sound. The scratching intensified, and it felt like it was coming from inside the walls behind me. Whatever was hidden there wanted to be free. I stepped back, heart pounding, unsure if I should stay or flee. "Please," Amelia said, her voice more insistent. "You must know the truth." "What truth? What happened to you?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. With every question, I felt the weight of something ancient stirring in the house. Amelia raised her hand, as if trying to show me something. I could see a shimmer, like sunlight reflecting off water, emanating just behind her. In that moment, I felt drawn to the wall, as if it held all the answers I needed. But could I really trust this figure? An icy fear gripped me. What if I was being pulled into something dark? I glanced at the door, my mind warring between the pull to uncover the truth and the urge to escape the shadows. I took a tentative step forward, my hand shaking as I reached out to the wall. The surface felt unnaturally cold against my palm. Suddenly, I heard a loud crash from the other side of the room. My heart raced as I spun around. Something was happening, something I was not prepared for. Before I could react, the wall began to reverberate, shaking violently. Dust fell from the ceiling, and I stumbled back. "Help us," Amelia cried again, desperation filling her voice. Then, without warning, the ground beneath me started to tremble. Objects fell from their places, and I had to fight to keep my balance. I could feel something breathing behind the walls, something alive stirring among the long-buried secrets, that's when I noticed it. An outline appeared in the wall, a crack running from the floor to the ceiling, pulsing with an eerie light. My heart pounded as dread settled in. I knew I shouldn't, but I took another step toward it. I had to find out what lay beyond, I had to understand Amelia's plea. But as I reached the crack, a voice boomed from the shadows, deeper and more menacing than Amelia's. "Get away from there." I turned at the sound, terror coursing through me. Someone or something was in the house with me. I felt my blood run cold as I faced the source of that voice. The shadows shifted, coalescing into a figure at the edge of the dim light, tall and imposing. Fear gripped me, and I wanted nothing more than to bolt for the door. But my legs refused to move. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice trembling despite my effort to sound brave. The figure stepped closer. His face was obscured, but I could make out a glint in his eyes that held a mixture of anger and something darker. "You shouldn't be here," he growled. "This house is not for you." I felt a rush of adrenaline. "But Amelia, she's here. She needs help." I glanced back at the wall, the crack still glowing ominously. I could feel Amelia's presence next to me, urging me to find the truth. "Amelia is gone," he replied with a sneer. "And you need to leave before you regret it." Ignoring his warning, I glanced at Amelia, who appeared more agitated, her form flickering. "They don't want you to know." "You must." The man lunged forward, and I instinctively backed away. He may have looked human, but there was something unnatural about him. I said, "Get out." The ground shook again, and I felt my heart racing as the crack widened, a rush of air blowing past me like a whispered secret. At that moment, I knew I had to make a choice, uncover whatever this mystery was or run for my life. As I darted sideways, my foot caught on something, a loose floorboard. I stumbled, sprawling onto the floor, sending a cloud of dust into the air. I could feel the man looming over me like a shadow. "You're going to regret this," he spat. With a burst of fear-fueled energy, I scrambled to my feet. I was caught between Amelia's desperate pleas and the man's furious presence. My fight-or-flight response kicked in again. I didn't have many options, but something compelled me to push forward. I glanced back at Amelia. "What do I do?" Her eyes widened, and she pointed toward the crack. "Find the truth." Before I could think twice, I lunged for the wall, and I reached out to the glowing crack just as the man lunged for me. Suddenly, the wall seemed to sizzle against my skin, and I felt a surge of energy rush through me. The crack widened further, almost as if it wanted to pull me in. A wild noise erupted from the walls, a cacophony of whispers and cries that chilled me to the bone. Just as the figure's hands brushed against my shoulder, everything around me slowed. I didn't know how much time I had left. What did they hide in the walls for 93 years? I thought. Then, with a burst of brightness, everything went dark. The last thing I heard was the echo of whispers mixed with Amelia's haunting cry, "Help us." When I opened my eyes, I was lying on cool ground. The air felt different, thicker somehow, filled with an energy I couldn't explain. I pushed myself up, blinking against a blinding light that surrounded me. As the brightness faded, I realized I was in a small chamber, its walls lined with faded photographs and strange symbols etched into the stone. That I was no longer in the house, or at least not the part one recognized. The room had an eerie quietness about it, the kind that makes your skin prickle. I got to my feet, my heart pounding, and looked around. Amelia was nowhere to be seen, but I felt her presence lingering like a shadow. The walls seemed to pulse with an unsettling energy. Every shadow looked alive. I moved toward the nearest photo, intrigued and a little horrified. It depicted a family, the Durnhams, from decades ago. They looked so cheerful, but something in their eyes felt wrong. There was a darkness behind the smiles that made my stomach flip. Is this what they hid? I whispered to myself, trying to make sense of it all. Just then, a loud crashing noise resonated from far away. I jumped, adrenaline surging again. I couldn't tell how far I was from that man, but I knew I had to stay alert. Driven by that urgency, I approached the next wall, my fingers tracing the symbols. They were a mix of letters and shapes that didn't belong together. Some were familiar, while others felt ancient. I suddenly heard a low, rumbling sound, like distant thunder. It grew louder, vibrating through the floor beneath me. Panic washed over me. I needed to find a way out of here. But the symbols on the walls seemed to pull me in, each one whispering secrets only half formed in my mind. I couldn't shake the feeling that they were a key to understanding what happened in this house. That as I stepped back, the floor trembled again, and I nearly lost my balance. That's when I noticed something shifting in the corner of the room. A shadow darted, but it was too dark to make out what it was. I squinted, trying to focus. "Amelia?" I called out, my voice echoing against the stone. No answer. Instead, the buzzing sound intensified, nearly drowning out my thoughts. I could feel the air tightening around me, almost stifling. I had to act fast, then I caught sight of something glimmering among the debris. I scrambled toward it, my heart racing. It was a small, ornate key. An old, rusty thing with intricate designs. This had to mean something. Maybe it could open a door, a passage back to the surface, or even to Amelia. Just as I reached for it, a shadow loomed behind me, blocking out the light. The room went cold, and I felt a surge of dread. I turned slowly, and found the figure from before staring down at me, that familiar wicked glint in his eyes. "Did you think you could escape?" he hissed. I could only stare in horrified disbelief, clutching the key as if it meant life or death. I needed to know if this was the way to set things right or if it was the end of my chance to save Amelia. With a resolve I hadn't known I possessed, I tightened my grip on the key. "I'm going to find out all of your secrets," I challenged, even as my voice quivered. "How foolish," he replied, creeping closer. Heart racing, I knew I had to move quickly. There had to be a way out, and I was going to find it before it was too late. I bolted toward the wall opposite the figure, desperation fueling my movements. The shadows shifted ominously as I ran, but I couldn't let fear paralyze me. I glanced back, and his eyes, those cold, piercing eyes, watched my every move. It felt like they could reach into me, pulling on my fears and doubts. That I searched the walls quickly, scanning for any sign of a door or any kind of escape route that might be hidden from view. The key felt heavy in my palm, almost alive, as if it was reacting to the energy in the room. My fingers trembled as I pushed against the stone, hoping for a latch or crevice. Then I spotted something, a faint outline that resembled a doorframe on the left side of the room. Relief washed over me. I dashed toward it, but my heartbeat quickened as I heard him laugh softly behind me. It was a low, gravelly sound that made my skin crawl. "Do you really think you can unlock the truth?" he taunted. Ignoring him, I pressed my hands against the cold stone. I could feel the vibrations pulsing as if the wall were alive itself. Something twisted within me. I had to know what lay beyond this barrier. I fumbled with the key, my thumb tracing the intricate designs as I approached the outline. Just as I reached for it, the light in the chamber flickered, throwing shadows that danced dangerously close. I gasped, pausing for a heartbeat to regain my composure. Then I shoved the key into the lock and turned it. It felt warm in my hands, almost as if it were eager to fulfill its purpose. To my surprise, the stone shifted, grinding against itself as a section of the wall began to slide open. Dust and debris cascaded down, but there was no turning back now. I pushed through the opening, a mix of fear and determination propelling me forward. On the other side was another dark passage, lined with more of those strange symbols. The air felt staler here, a warning of what lay ahead. I glanced back one last time, only to see the figure watching me from the chamber, his grin growing wider. "This isn't the end," he called, his voice echoing ominously. "You'll be back." I shivered at the thought but forced myself to turn away. I needed to press on. There was no time for second thoughts. I moved deeper into the tunnel, my pulse racing. Each step echoed in the silence, amplifying my fear. That it didn't take long before I found another source of light flickering ahead. I quickened my pace, desperate to reach it. But the moment I stepped into the glow, I stumbled upon a horrifying scene. The walls were covered with more photographs, hundreds of them each showing the Durnham family at different stages, but with a twist. In every image, someone was missing. The faces were there, smiling, but one person always faded into shadow, lost to the light. I froze, a chill creeping up my spine. I turned to leave, feeling that same presence looming behind me. That's when I heard it. A muffled voice carried through the walls, faint but distinct. "Help me!" I clenched my fists. Was it Amelia? I had to find out. But as I stepped back into the passage, the wall behind me began to close, a sharp scraping sound filling the air. My breath caught in my throat. Just as I scrambled to escape, the wall pressed against my back, forcing me forward into the light. Everything changed in an instant, a sudden shift that felt unreal. That I emerged into another chamber, but this one was different. It was vast, with a ceiling that disappeared into darkness. The air felt charged, alive with an unexplainable power. There were no familiar faces here, just secrets waiting to be unveiled, and as I scanned the room, I realized I was not alone. Someone else had made it in here, and their eyes were locking onto mine, filled with urgency and fear that I steeled myself. Whatever happened next, I was ready to face it. I took a step forward, trying to gauge the intensity in the other person's eyes. They were wide and pleading, like they were begging for me to do something. I could see the faint outline of their face, but the shadows swallowed the details. My heart raced as I waited for them to speak. "Please, you have to help me," they whispered urgently, their voice trembling. I could barely make out the shape of a woman. "They're coming for us." "Who? Who is coming?" I asked, my voice barely louder than a breath. I couldn't help but glance around the chamber, scanning the darkness. I felt exposed, like prey in the open. "They know we're here," she insisted, panic etching her features. "We have to find a way out before it's too late." I wanted answers, but time felt short. "I can't leave you," I said, feeling an inexplicable sense of responsibility. "What do you know about this place?" She hesitated, her gaze darting toward a dark corner of the chamber. "The Durnhams. They trapped us. They've been watching for years. We need the key." "The key?" I echoed, clutching the one I had tightly. I felt a flicker of hope. "This one?" She nodded, her eyes pleading. "Yes, but there's more to it. There's a second key. It's south, hidden somewhere close. If we don't find it." A low rumbling interrupted her. The ground shook slightly beneath us, and dust fell from the ceiling. I grabbed her wrist instinctively. "What was that?" "They're coming," she whispered, unabated terror in her voice. "We have to hurry." Without thinking, I pulled her toward the back of the chamber, away from the flickering light. I could feel the energy in the room change, heavy and hostile. Every instinct urged me to get out, to run. Yet, the urgency in her words kept me moving forward. "Do you know where the other key is?" I asked, urgency lacing my tone. "There's a pedestal, something in the walls," she gasped as we moved deeper into the shadows. "I saw it before I was trapped." "It's the walls around us," echoed a sinister sound, a low growl that sent chills down my spine. I glanced back, revealing a dark figure forming at the entrance. I ran faster, the woman at my side matching my pace. My mind raced as we searched the cavernous periphery for any sign of the pedestal. The strange markings on the walls flickered in and out of existence, almost like they were alive. Then I saw something, a faint glow from an alcove. My breath hitched with hope. "Over there!" I shouted, bolting toward it. As we approached, the wall began to vibrate, pulsing in response to our presence. I reached out, pressing my hands against its surface. It felt warm, welcoming almost, as if it recognized the urgency we brought, but just as I thought we might uncover something, the growl from behind grew louder, filling me with dread. "We have to be quick," I urged. If the wall understood, it shifted slightly, revealing an opening where the glow intensified. I looked at the woman beside me, and her wide eyes seemed to say the same thing I was thinking: this could be our only chance. But just as she moved to join me, the darkness surged forward. The figure blocked the exit, a monstrous shape amidst the shadows. I froze, fear wrapping around me tighter than ever before. Then everything went dark. I felt the world around me collapse into a void, darkness swallowing everything. My heart pounded in my chest, loud and frantic. I reached out, searching for the woman, but I felt nothing, only the oppressive silence pressing in on me. I wanted to scream but couldn't find my voice. Suddenly, a flicker of light broke through the darkness, illuminating a narrow passageway. I stumbled forward, my feet unsure on the ground. The light flickered again, drawing me in. "Hello." I called out, but my voice echoed back, hollow and empty. "Keep going." The woman's voice pierced through the gloom. I clung to her words, turning toward the source. I stepped cautiously into the light. It felt warm against my skin, a stark contrast to the cold shadows behind me. I blinked, trying to adjust, and saw the woman standing at the far end, illuminated by the soft glow. Behind her loomed the dark figure, still blocking the entrance but now partially obscured by shadows. "Over here," she urged again, waving for me to join her. But just as I took a step, the dark figure moved closer, its form shifting like smoke, terrifying yet oddly mesmerizing. "Wait!" I halted, my instincts screaming to retreat. "What is that?" "It's them!" she shouted, panic overtaking her voice. "We don't have time to think. They'll be upon us any moment." A chill ran through me. "But we need the key. We have to find it first." I couldn't let fear paralyze me. I felt an urgency to act, but the figure loomed larger now, a specter threatening to consume us both. I saw it. "It's along the wall, near the pedestal," she insisted, her voice trembling with desperation. "You need to go. I'll hold them off." I hesitated, torn between the urge to stay and protect her and the need to find the second key. I looked back at the dark figure that surged forward, its hollow eyes locked on me. "You can't do this alone," I shouted, sensing the impending doom. She met my gaze, determination flickering through her fear. "You can do this. Find the key. I'll find a way to stall them." Something in her eyes sparked a flicker of resolve within me. I took a deep breath. "Okay. I'll go." I dashed past her, racing toward the wall where I had seen the faintest hint of a glow. As I searched the surface, my fingers brushed over jagged markings, each pulsating with energy, like they were alive. I felt a rush, a connection to something ancient. "There!" I exclaimed, spotting a small indentation, barely visible against the stone. My heart raced as I pressed my hand into it. The wall trembled in response, the light intensifying. But then I heard a loud crash from behind me. The woman screamed. Fear shot through me. I turned just in time to see the dark figure breaking free from the shadows and lunging toward her. "No!" I yelled, my body reacting before my mind could catch up. I rushed back, intent on saving her. Everything else faded into the background. I couldn't lose her, not now, but just as I reached her, an invisible force threw me backward, crashing me against the wall. I gasped in pain, my vision blurred as I struggled to regain focus. That's when I saw the second key glimmering faintly in the shadows on the pedestal. A pulse of energy sparked between us, connecting not just the key to me but linking our fates in a way I didn't understand. Then, without warning, the light enveloped us both, and I felt time shift, the air thick and electric. Whatever secrets the walls held, I knew I had to uncover them. Now, more than ever, there was no turning back. I blinked against the brightness as the light swirled around me like a living thing, blurring the edges of my reality. The sense of urgency wrapped around me, suffocating and electric. I couldn't focus on what was happening. Everything felt chaotic, then the light faded as quickly as it had come, leaving me standing on solid ground with a rush. I looked around, the weight of silence pressed down harder now. Had I moved? I didn't recognize this place. The walls were smooth and dark, adorned with countless etchings that seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. My heart raced. "Where are you?" I called out. My voice trembled, but I knew I couldn't let fear take over. I needed to be brave. I needed to find the woman, to locate the second key. "Right here," she shouted from somewhere in the distance, her voice echoing, but it felt farther away, somehow distorted. Panic surged through me as I moved forward cautiously, every step heavy with dread that I glanced back, half expecting to see the dark figure lurking behind me. I didn't see it, but the shadows danced with an unsettling life of their own. I pressed on. "Are you okay?" I shouted. The walls closed in, feeling more oppressive with each passing moment. "Yes, just keep going." She sounded strained, her voice tight that I turned my attention to the markings on the wall, searching for any clue or sign that might lead me to the key. Patterns intertwined, creating a tapestry of secrets and stories, but none were decipherable. What had this place been? Why did it feel familiar yet foreign? Then I saw it. A faint glimmer beyond an archway, a flicker of golden light that could only be the key. My heart leapt. Hope surged inside me, and I sprinted toward it, throwing caution to the wind. "Wait!" She called again, panic lacing her tone, but I was already through the archway. It opened into a small chamber, filled with artifacts I couldn't comprehend. The air felt charged, and I sensed an ancient presence surrounding me. At the center stood a pedestal, similar to the one I had noticed before, and on it rested a key brilliant and shimmering. Biting back doubt, I stepped closer, reaching out as if it would answer some unasked question. Just as my fingers brushed against the metal, a shadow flitted past the entrance of the chamber. "Get back!" I yelled, spinning around, heart racing. The dark figure was emerging once more, and instinct told me it wasn't just a threat, it was a promise of chaos. I had to hurry. "Can you distract it?" I shouted, feeling oddly emboldened by the key's presence. "Yes, just get the key." Her voice rang with urgency. I grabbed the key, feeling a surge of power course through me. The moment it was in my hand, the chamber rattled, and the shadows deepened, swirling ominously. But I had both keys now, a connection forged between them that felt unbreakable. But as I turned to leave, the dark figure rushed toward me, faster than before. I barely had time to react as it flooded into the chamber, narrowing the space between us. Suddenly, everything went dark again, but this time, I held on to the keys tightly. There was no way I was going to let them slip through my fingers now. I had to find out what they hid in those walls, even if it meant facing the darkness head-on. I could feel my body being pulled through the darkness as if I was in a current, then suddenly, I tumbled to the floor. Gasping, I pushed myself up, drenched in sweat and trembling from the adrenaline. I was back in the familiar, but chaotic, interior of the Victorian house. The air was thick, almost suffocating, and I could still sense the remnants of the shadows hanging in the corners. Watching that, I remained on the floor for a moment, clutching the two keys tightly in my fist, every muscle in my body tense. The whispers resumed, echoing around me, mingling with the deep scratching emanating from the walls. My instinct told me to bolt, to abandon this nightmare, but something deeper urged me to stand my ground. I needed to confront whatever was lurking here. Whatever the Durnhams had hidden was now mine to face. "Help us," I heard Amelia's voice again, softer yet sharper, resonating this time. Without hesitation, I pushed myself up and stepped toward the source of the sound, which seemed to resonate deeper within the walls. I had more questions than ever. What had really happened to the Durnhams? What terrible secret had they kept for so long? With a surge of determination, I focused on the pair of keys and the crack running through the wall. I approached it carefully, and in the periphery, I saw the dark figure gathering in a mass, its eyes glinting with malevolence. I held up the keys as if they possessed powers beyond my understanding. Whatever darkness you hold here, I will not be afraid. The shadow trembled, its form shifting like smoke. I thrust the first key into the crack, feeling the cold metal against the warm pulse of the house around me. It sank into the wall, and with a heavy rumble, the crack began to widen, the shadows swirling like a storm. I didn't stop to think, I inserted the second key alongside it. The moment I turned it, a blinding light erupted from the wall that I was momentarily blinded, and the cacophony around me escalated into a thrumming tempest of sound. In that chaotic juncture of light and darkness, I saw glimpses, flashes of the Durnham family, their faces punctuated with sorrow, their eyes pleading. It was like they were trapped in limbo, caught in a web of memories and despair that had festered within the walls of this house. Then, just as quickly as it had begun, silence took over. I opened my eyes to find the pulsating light fading away, leaving behind an eerie calm. The air had changed, it felt lighter, void of the weight that had burdened my heart for so long. I turned to see the dark figure retreating into the shadows, its anger dissipating like smoke. "Why were you holding them?" I whispered into the quiet, though I knew no answer would come. The house around me felt different now. Somehow, the scratching had ceased, the whispers had quieted, and a sense of release had enveloped me, as if the Durnham family could finally breathe again. That I stepped back, feeling an emotional release wash over me, though a lingering heaviness remained in the pit of my stomach. I still didn't understand the entirety of what had happened, the ambiguous nature of the whispers and shadows, the uncertain fate of Amelia, the reason the Durnhams vanished into thin air. As I stood in the now silent house, actually intact and standing firm around me, I knew I was free, but I hesitated. Would I ever truly escape this? Would something of the secret remain bound to me? Maybe I'd never have all the answers. Eventually, I made my way to the front door and stepped outside, squinting against the sun that seemed particularly bright today. I took a deep breath, filling my lungs with fresh air. I walked down the path, feeling as if I was finally shedding the layers of shadows that had clung to me, but as I glanced back at the Victorian house, its windows seemed to glimmer with a knowing light, and uncanny finality mixed with lingering secrets. I still think about the Durnhams sometimes. I don't know if they truly found peace or if the house still held fragments of their past. I haven't gone back, afraid of what might linger, but a part of me knows I may never fully escape the grip of that night, the rhythm of those whispers still echoing in my mind.